Aloha! Let's learn some data entry tips and tricks. Imagine that every single day at work, you have a list like this, and you've got to enter data. You got to put in the customer name. And these are customers that you're working with on a regular basis. They're repeated over and over. You've got to add the manager's name associated with this account. And they're the same managers that you're working with on a regular basis. Now you've got to put in the part number, and then you've got to type in a description for that part number. So you got to look up the description. So for part number 13, we go to another worksheet, our parts worksheet, and we see that part number 13 is the master grips. So we go right back and type in the description, master grips. And then finally, we've got to enter the date that we put in this data into. So we type in February 28th, 2016. So every single day, multiple times a day, we've got to do this. There's got to be a better way. Well, I can think of 4 things we can do to improve upon this already existing spreadsheet. I can think of data validation, VLOOKUP, formatting as a table, and your date stamp. So for example, we've got to add another customer. So we just expand our table, select the customer, select the manager from a drop-down, put in the part number. Excel looks up the description for us, and then we just do a date stamp, just like that. So let's go ahead and learn how to do this in just a few short steps. Let's go back to our worksheet. The first step we want to do is add data validation. So we select the cell where we want to insert the data validation. We go to our data tab, and in our data tab, we can select data validation. When we select data validation, our data validation dialog box appears. It lands at the settings tab, and under validation criteria where it says allow, we're going to allow from a list. So we go ahead and select list. Once we select allow from list, well, Excel wants to know where's the source of the list. So we click inside the source field, and we're going to navigate to the worksheet that has our customers. So here we have our worksheet that has our customers, and we select the list. Then we press OK. Now we're going to do data validation for our managers. So we put the marquee in the cell where we want to add data validation. Go back to our data tab. In our data tools, click on data validation. We want to allow data from a list. Excel wants to know where the list is. Click inside the source field and go to the managers worksheet. Select the list of managers that you have, and then we press OK. So now we want to copy the data validation on down, because we've got data validation right here, but we don't have data validation in all these other cells. So we'll select the entire column that has data validation, just these right now in this case. Go back to data validation tab. In your data tools group, click on data validation, and now you see the data validation information dialog box that just appeared. And it says, the selection contains some cells without data validation settings. Do you want to extend data validation to these cells? And we say yes. Click and press OK. So now we have data validation in all these cells. Now we're going to do the same thing for the managers column. Just select the range that has data in it right now. Go back to data validation and say yes again, and then OK. And here we have data validation in our managers section. Now for the description, we want to look up the description. So what we want to do is a VLOOKUP. So we're going to type in equals VLOOKUP. There's our VLOOKUP comes up. Double click on it, and there's our arguments for our VLOOKUP. We've got the lookup value. What are we looking up? We've got the table array. Where are we looking it up in? And we've got the column index number, which column is the piece of information that we want in. So the lookup value, I'm going to select the part number. I'll put in a comma to move me to my next argument. Where's the table array? The table array is in my parts worksheet. So I select this whole entire table. And I put in another comma to move me to my next argument, the column index number. In other words, which column is the description in, and the description is in column number 2. So I pick column number 2 of this table. I'll put in another comma to move me to my next argument, and I want an exact match. So I'm going to double click right here on exact match. Then I'm going to close my parentheses, and I'm going to press enter. So now I've got my VLOOKUP. I'm going to copy that VLOOKUP down simply by double clicking on my autofill handle. So here we see the autofill handle. I'm going to put the pointer over it and double click to copy my formula all down. Now when I click on each one of these cells, look at the formula bar. There's my VLOOKUP. Next cell, there's the VLOOKUP. Next cell, there's the VLOOKUP. Next cell, there's the VLOOKUP. So I copied it on down. So step 1, put in our data validation. Copy it on down to the existing data range. Then put in your VLOOKUP to do your vertical lookup of the part numbers. So now let's go ahead and format as a table. So with our marquee in the data, the shortcut is Control T. Press Control T and the Create Table dialog box appears. Where is the data for your table? Well, because we had the marquee in the data, that range is pre-selected for us. And now Excel wants us to confirm that my table has headers. It does, so we leave that box checked. We press OK, and now here we have a table. Now notice in the ribbon we now have an additional tab. It's called the Contextual Tool tab, Table Tools. So let's click on it, and then we look at the table styles. Click on the drop down for table styles, and you can just pick whichever table style you're looking at, and I'm going to stick with the orange theme that we have right here. And so now we've got our table set up with our data validation and our VLOOKUP in it. And the reason why we set it up as a table was because now everything's going to be automatic for us from here on. So let's say you got another customer that you want to enter data on. You just expand your table by clicking on the lower right hand corner. Notice this. Lower right hand corner of my table, left click and drag to insert another row. Then I can just go right ahead here, and for our customers, click in that cell. There's my data validation. It's going to be, for example, NMX, and the manager associated with that is Rogers, and then the part number is part number 12, and then it finds a description for that part number, and then for the date, there's the final shortcut, the date stamp shortcut, which is a control semicolon. And there you have it. Well, what if you want to add another row of customers, and now you're working with a new customer, XFB. So you type in XFB, and then you press enter, and now we've got an error message. Why? Well, because XFB is currently not a customer that we have inside our list. So we can easily go to that customers list that is in the customers worksheet, and then just right inside the range, press Control plus to insert another row, and then we'll just put in the name of that new customer, XFB, and then press enter. Now we go back to data validation, and we click on the drop down, and there's that new customer, XFB. And we've got our managers. This one has been assigned to Clark, and the part number is part number 16. Then we tab on over to the date and do the date stamp, control semicolon. There you have it. We now know how to format as a table, do data validation, and a quick use of the VLOOKUP. And remember, don't get mad, get skills. Aloha.